Hey everybody, welcome back to Omens. I'm your host Ryan, AM air pronouns, and it's episode 20. I'm excited. Um, we're almost to a quarter of 100, which is nowhere near the end number of videos I'm planning on making, but you know what? Apparently it's a commonality for most, well, usually podcasts, I suppose, to kind of stop after like 25 episodes is their average length or whatever, but, so I'm hanging on, even though it's kind of, sometimes I'm like, is it even worth it? But you know what? At least it teaches me something. Slight change in my background. There's a giant sheet of newspaper covering the top two shelves, or most of them, of my bookshelf, because somebody, Gabriel, decided that my books made great shredding toys, and yeah, no, once he's done with the hardback cover, I don't want him going for the slightly more damageable books. I'm not too worried about a paper cover on a hardback book, but though it is irritating. Yes, I'm talking about you. But anyway, it's episode 20. It is a third Sunday, so that means we're setting tarot aside for a little bit to look at some other witchy shit. And I've been mentioning it those last few months, couple months or so, that my zodiac is slightly off because, of course, I went and started it with Virgo in September, even though it was about to move to Libra, and so we've been hanging on by a thread. In fact, I've uploaded at least one of these the day of the sun changing signs. However, this month the sun is already in Pisces, but I said screw it. I'm still going to talk about Aquarius because I'm stubborn like that. You know what? I started it. I'll finish it. Fuck it if it's slightly off. Oh well. It's at least useful knowledge for other times, even if it's not specific to the current time that this is actually getting uploaded. Oh well. Fuck it. That's my videos. I can do what I want. Within reason, I suppose. Alright, so today we're going to be talking about the zodiac sign and constellation of Aquarius, the crystal or stone Aquamarine, the herb/plant Fenugreek, and the rune Uruz. So yeah, let's dive in, and only one of those is actually specifically associated with Aquarius. Anyway, okay, so let's dive in. So first up, we have Aquarius. I'm going to go into the zodiac sign of Aquarius first. So Aquarius is kind of a day, sun energy, masculine, quote-unquote, inhale energy. Think inhale day energy. You've got this rotation where the sign falls in the rotation of inhale, exhale of the zodiac. So it's an inhale sign. Even though Aquarius, you think aqua, water, and oh yeah, Aquarius actually means, it comes from the Latin, which means either water bearer or the cup bearer or whatever. It is not a water sign, it is an air sign. It is actually the final air sign in the zodiac cycle. But it is in the fixed modality, which is the middle modality. So you have cardinal, then fixed, then mutable. So it's fixed. It's the fixed air sign. It's associated with the 11th house of the natal chart. Its modern ruler is Uranus. However, its ancient or original ruler, I suppose, was Saturn, back before they knew Uranus existed. It's associated with the direction of northeast, and it rules over pretty much the late winter season. It's kind of end of January, middle of February is around where it falls. Day sign. Let's step back to the planetary rulers of Uranus and Saturn. So Saturn was its original ruler because that Saturn was the final planet that you can see with the naked eye. Basically, it wasn't until telescopes were discovered and telescopes were made and more used more often that Uranus was actually discovered. Sometime around the 1800s, I believe. And what I have heard mentioned often recently, because the whole new hype about the Aquarian age and Saturn and Jupiter moving into the Great Conjunction, which is creating a couple of new cycles, which I think I've mentioned previously, but I'm not going to dive into it because I'm not all up on all that information and it's not important here. But so Saturn used to be the original ruler of Aquarius because they only had so many planets and a ton more signs. And Aquarius is a bit of a very structured sign. It is a fixed modality, so fixed modalities tend to be very a little more set in their ways. They're actually going to sit there and get things done, as opposed to, let's go start this new thing and this new thing and this new thing, or, you know, instead of being the idea people or the kind of, I forget what mutable is, and kind of, instead of being the idea, cardinals tend to be the idea makers, the let's go start something. Mutables tend to be the let's move around all these different things and not really stay set on one thing. Fixed are very set and very, let's actually, this thing we started, let's finish it. And then we can explore new ideas. So fixed Saturn, boundary maker, the rule maker, CEO type deal. So it kind of flows along with Aquarius a bit, plus it's an air sign. Even though Saturn tends to be more earthy, it was Saturn is the maker of boundaries. Now, interestingly enough, when Uranus was discovered, I can't remember all the things that were going on at the time, but I'm not much up for history. I do. One of the podcasts I listened to, I believe it was Weirdly Magical, it explained that when Uranus discovered, that was kind of when the Industrial Revolution was beginning, I believe. That's when we broke through the structures, started with new things, so Uranus became associated with that energy that we've had these boundaries, let's break through them. And because it's like, this Saturn was the edge, was the boundary of the known solar system, and all of a sudden we've got another one, so we've expanded and broken through those boundaries. So, and you wouldn't assign that with, so Uranus is the name of the ancient Greek god of the sky, who was the father of the Titans and kind of a major dick. There's not a whole lot of mythology about him that I remember specifically, but it's kind of a jerk, and he was the sky god. That's as much as I know, and he was kind of and he was a tyrant, as was his son Kronos eventually. So the name Uranus is kind of doesn't really quite fit with, based from the mythology, with the actual energies associated with the planet and with the sign of Aquarius. However, there is also, I believe from Weirdly Magical is where I picked up this tidbit, and I don't know for sure how accurate it is, there was apparently someone said, back when Uranus was first discovered, there was talk about calling it Prometheus, and apparently there's a quote from some astrologer that said it should have been called Prometheus, because Prometheus was the Grecian light bringer, the one who said, look, mankind is starving and failing, and all you guys are just laughing like they gotta figure it out on their own, but they're not gonna figure anything out, so I'm gonna take them light. So Prometheus was the light bringer. He got in trouble for it, but eventually they finally let him go. Got in major trouble for it, but he basically brought knowledge and light of fire to mankind to help them actually like succeed and move forward, and because they hadn't figured out fire, which give or take. So he's one of the light bearer archetypes. Lucifer's another one. So that makes more sense with the planet's energy of the, you know what, we're stuck. We need someone to break through these boundaries and show us there's somewhere new to go. So, and that gives you kind of an idea of a little bit of what Aquarius is also like. Aquarius is very individual. You know what? Yeah. So Aquarius tends to be very, some of the keywords associated with it is unpredictable, inventive, original. Aquarians, the sun sign, people who have their sun sign in Aquarians, and this can show up through other planets that, if you have your natal chart, you can find where Aquarius is in your chart, and that'll tell you kind of the area of your life where you tend to be a little bit more individualistic, but also socially conscious, where you're both individual, a little quirky, a little more original, I guess, who you are as yourself, whether it's like, say, in the 10th house, which has to do with career and business. That could very well mean that Aquarius on your 10th house means that you're going to be very innovative in business. You're going to come up with new ideas and be able to follow through on them because fixed sign, they follow through. Or if it's in your second house of close relationship, close immediate relationships, like people who are immediately around you. You tend to attract very spontaneous people who, though maybe your siblings and you were all kind of quirky and original. Maybe your earliest friends, maybe your friends in school, because people immediately surround you, so that's who you're kind of stuck with getting along with. Tended to be your more just out there type people. That kind of gives you an idea, like with houses, if you're, and how the planet, and whatever planet happens to be in Aquarius, expresses itself. But we're going to focus more on the sun signs. That's kind of an example of how you can apply it to other places in your chart. People with their sun sign. So your sun sign, as we said before, is kind of your core self, your ego self, your immediate core self, who you like are in your very core. It's definitely always semi-changed by the influences, not only from where it is in your chart, but also the other planets surrounding, how the rest of your chart looks, all that, etc., etc. It's just your basic blueprint. But basically your core self is your sun sign. So people who have their sun in Aquarius tend to be unpredictable, inventive, original, as we said, socially conscious, dedicated to causes and reform, because Aquarius is the sign of the collective as well as the individual, which is very interesting, duality, because air signs do tend to be a little bit more dualistic, because you have Gemini, which is literally the sign of the twins, you have Libra, which is the sign of the scales, and then Aquarius, so it just goes ahead to follow that Aquarius would also be kind of a dualistic sign. And even the glyph of Aquarius is 2 lines of waves. Not just 1 line of waves, 2. There's always seems to be 2. So both the individual and the collective. So they tend to be socially conscious, humanitarian. They want to save. They kind of want to just, like, save the world, or at least save a part of the world. They've got all kinds of ideas, and they'll probably follow through on a lot of them. Because again, fixed sign. They'll actually get down to business and do shit as they can. Now, the other part of Aquarius, because it is very much an air sign, so it's all in the head, they can seem to be emotionally distant or even anarchist in their emotions. It's like they seem to be cut off from their emotions. They're not, actually. Aquarians tend to be some of the most emotionally connected people. They just don't express it very well. I have my older brother is an Aquarius, and now I'm gonna dive into my siblings' charts eventually, so I'll learn more about them. He is very much go-getter, very much. He's the only one of our family who I would call pretty much a true extrovert. Even I fall closer to the extrovert side, but I'm still more of an ambivert. But he's the one I'd call a true extrovert. He has to be around people to be happy, which can be hard just given his mental disabilities, and his limitations. But he will try anything once, and luckily my parents are very go for it. Do it within your best of your abilities. They refuse to hold any of their kids back as much as their morals and ethics will let them anyway. But that's a whole nother conversation. So, but he can see his emotions can be a little off, but when they do come through, because he doesn't have quite as much of a filter, they are strong. He goes all out ballistic when it comes to emotions. So Aquarians are not emotionless. It's just in the majority of people, they tend to be slightly cut off. And even when I say he goes slightly more all out, I think some of it is because he doesn't quite have that connect with the emotions. So therefore, it can be like, well, hide it, or it's like, okay, it's there, it's like small, so I can ignore it. It's building, and then it just crashes through. And where a lot of people have filters, he doesn't, so it comes out very strong. So they're not emotionless. Aquarians are not emotionless. You cannot be like such a you really can't be a humanitarian without being emotional. Let's put it that way. Now, Aquarians, because they do tend to be more quirky and whatnot, sometimes that can feel like, God, I'm like alienated, left out, so they might try to conform to like suppress some of their more individualistic self to try to fit in, because they are very much social creatures, more so than most signs. They're very social creatures. They want that social connection. So they might try to suppress their individuality in order to connect, but that's actually not good for them. If you're an Aquarian and you're trying to do that, don't have good outlets for your individuality. Like, even if they're small outlets of, what is it? You say, if you know the show Bones, which most people do, that FBI agent in there, very strict, always wearing the suit and tie and whatnot. However, he did always wear crazy socks. A little bit of his own control and individuality expressed through wearing crazy socks, stuff like that. Or, your tie's a little, or hell, even your underwear. It's like nobody's gonna see your underwear unless you're showing it to them. But it's the small stuff. Even if you feel like you're in a place where you have to conform, having something that shows your individual self. And if you're somewhere where you can be your individual, unique self, go ahead and flaunt it. The right people will come at the right time. Now, that's just my advice, my opinion. But take it or leave it as you like. You don't have to. So it's kind of your sun sign of Aquarius. Your rising signs, Aquarius as the rising sign, which, if you know your time of birth, you'll be able to figure that out, as well as your houses in your chart. Those with the rising sign of Aquarius tend to be, again, with the quirky, the curious, more than a little rebellious. They're friendly. They love intellectual meetings of the mind, especially when it comes to humanitarian stuff, or they also love a good debate, especially, and they're pretty good at playing devil's advocate, apparently. Pretty much everything that I said previously with the Aquarian sun sign, that also applies to Aquarius rising sign, just a little bit more, it's a little bit more out there. Instead of it being the core self, it's more of the outer shell that first comes up type deal. And appearance-wise, Aquarius risings tend to have a youthful appearance with a medium stature and tend to be drawn to wearing quirky clothes, according to Louise Eddington's Complete Guide to Astrology, anyway. I don't know, she tends to be, so far, fairly accurate when it comes to physical descriptions of rising signs. Granted, I've only really seen 2, so... No, 3. Yeah. So I kind of dove right into that, and skipped a bit, but let's just for funsies, some famous people with their sun in Aquarius: Oprah Winfrey, Bob Marley, Ellen DeGeneres, and Franklin D. Roosevelt. And some people with their famous people with their rising sign in Aquarius are Barack Obama, David Bowie, Nicki Minaj, and Carl Jung. Don't know if Carl Jung wore quirky clothes all the time or not. Alright, some more about the zodiac sign of Aquarius that I kind of skipped over. The glyph, and I found this an interesting take on it. The glyph represents the waves of energy that the water bearer is pouring down from the heavens, like waves of spirit or spiritual energy. It's the waves of, because we know energy, or if you want to talk like say light, it's particle and a wave. So think something along like that. Like we talked about energy in waves or vibrations anyway. It's kind of something. It doesn't represent water itself. It represents the spirit that the Aquarius water bearer is pouring down from the heavens. A little bit of medical astrology. Aquarius rules the lower legs, calves, and ankles. Calves, ankles, the Achilles tendon, and the nervous system. So Achilles tendon is kind of part of the ankle, but I threw that in there as separate because I thought it was interesting. It also rules the nervous system. And then the apothecary one had a whole long list of stuff that I was not going to write and read out all the way. The tarot cards associated with Aquarius, apparently the Knight of Swords, which I can see. It's very movement-oriented. It's idealistic. The Knight of Wands, she tends to just want to go, go, go and get things done and be, just cut through all the bullshit. And just go. Idealistic, individual, air, swords, obviously. The majors associated with Aquarius are the Star. That one is actually associated with the sign of Aquarius. And the Fool, which is associated with the planet Uranus. So, in tarot, the Star is kind of hope, relief, a breath after. It's the one that comes right after the Tower, so it tends to be a, holy crap, that was fun. That was not fun. Well, fun in a sarcastic term. That was not fun. That hurt a lot. That shook everything up. There's that sigh of relief that, okay, I've got clarity. I can actually start planning something just for this brief moment of clarity type deal. Because right after the Star comes the Moon, so yay. The Fool with the Uranus is, let's go, let's start, let's break through, let's go change things. Let's go, move, go, do whatever. So, yeah, those are the tarot signs. Tarot cards. Yeah. I believe that is everything I have on the zodiac sign. Oh, so this next part, and I kind of mentioned it back last month in my zodiac episode. The way the constellations have slowly moved over time, because sadly things don't stay fixed in position. Aquarius, like back around 4000 BC, was, where do I have it? Under here in the Aquarius. Nope, that's not what it was. So, it's in here. So, in approximately this is from Star Magic by Sandra Kynes. In approximately 4000 BCE, Aquarius was the background constellation for the sun during the winter solstice. However, today, that was like back in 4000 BC, today Aquarius actually usually ends up in our sky. Well, given that I Aquarius, actually, the constellation itself comes up during the autumn and at Samhain. Comes up during the autumn quarter of September, October, November is what she has on here. Which is actually after its polarity sign of Leo. So the polarity of Aquarius is Leo. Which... No, I have it on here, so... Find her chart. Oh, that's not it. So Aquarius tends to be in the sky from February 16th to March 11th, apparently here. Oh, constellations on the ecliptic. So that's when the sun is, like, literally in Aquarius, is near the end of the zodiac calendar of it. But the constellation itself comes up in the sky the most often, and apparently, that seems wrong. I don't know why she wrote that, but anyway. So the constellation itself, I have her picture here. See, it's kind of a weird, funky-looking upside-down U. She actually describes it as a gentle zigzag line of stars forms a crooked upside-down letter U. Okay, so the constellation itself, as I said, Aquarius comes from Latin, and it means basically the Latin, which means the cupbearer, the water bearer. It's located in the area known by the, I'd assume, ancient Greeks. She just puts the Greeks here. I assume more of the ancient Greeks who were actually starting to really do all the constellation. The area of the sky known as the sea, which we've had with a couple of cards here already. And actually, up until the 2nd century BCE, it was considered to be part of the constellation of the Eridanus, or the river. Some of the myths associated with the Aquarius constellation, the main one we know very well is the myth of Ganymede, who is the cupbearer to Zeus, who's the main cupbearer to Zeus, or at least the only one we really have a story about. Basically, he was a beautiful youth that Zeus became infatuated with, and Zeus sent down an eagle to capture Ganymede and bring him up to Olympus to become Zeus's cupbearer, and probably a lover. That's heavily implied, so it's just not said outright, but more than likely, yeah, a lover, basically. If I recall correctly, his family was well compensated by the gods for giving up their son to the king of the gods to be his cupbearer. That's the most well-known myth. There's apparently another one about the Aquarius actually being Deucalion. I think that might be how you pronounce it. Who is the son of Prometheus. Again, we have Prometheus, who survived the Great Deluge. I don't remember that Greek myth. I might vaguely remember it. I think it's something similar to the Noah's Ark myth that comes up in a lot of different mythology around the world. I'd assume it's something like that. I don't know that myth, however. To the Sumerians, the Aquarius was associated with their god Enki. To the Babylonians, to their god Ea, both of those two were gods of water and creation. The Egyptians associated with Hapi, the god of the Nile. So again, with the Nile, the flooding which brought about life, so water and creation again. And even the cupbearer in the myth was, he brought basically the drink of the gods that helped them keep their immortality. So again, life and creation kind of associated with the Aquarian constellation, and her rituals and magical uses for Aquarius in this book are about basically pouring down energy for creation. Either her first one actually is about using the energy of Aquarius to send down energy to fill seeds that will lay dormant over the winter because of when the constellation is actually in the sky, to sprout in the spring. I'd say you can move that around to around the actual Aquarius time to like fill these with energy to help them blossom, like whatever you want to grow. Psychic abilities, magic skills, art skills, and what have you. Also, her second one is about using how the stars are associated with luck. So, energy to give your good luck skills a bit of a boost. Yeah, so that is Aquarius, the zodiac sign, and the constellation. Alright, moving on. The next 3 parts. You don't say. Next 3 parts. So the stone I chose was Aquamarine, very heavily associated with Aquarius. I borrowed a piece of my sister's Aquamarine to kind of show you kind of what it looks like. It's a very pale, mostly opaque, very pale greenish blue, or bluish, yeah, greenish blue, basically aqua colored stone. It's very pale. It's actually pretty and it's quite cool and calming. And Aquamarine actually comes from Latin. I'm sure you can tell by the name itself, water of the sea, which seems a little bit redundant, but it also makes sense. Aquamarine is a very calming and centering stone. It used to be carried by sailors to protect against drowning, because, you know, it makes sense to hold a stone associated with the sea to keep the sea from grabbing you, I guess. I don't know. It apparently does have an affinity for sensitive people, which makes sense. It's a very strong water stone. Interesting enough, it's a very strong water stone. It's used to help because it's so good at clearing the mind. It brings that calming, soothing sensation that helps you clear your mind and focus. So it's a very good meditation stone. Very good for helping develop psychic abilities. It's also used for shielding the aura, clearing the chakras, especially the throat chakra, which makes sense given that it is a blue color. So slightly more, pretty well, good stone for the throat chakra. And third eye, yeah, that's green, blue. Oh no, that's indigo violet, but you could probably use it for third eye too, because indigo is like half blue. It's not blue with purple, or purple with blue, it is half. So it's very good for clearing the throat, clearing the throat chakra to help you bring good communication, like say spiritually inspired communication, especially because it is also very strongly a spiritual stone. Which makes sense that adds to its being a stone of Aquarius, because Aquarius is an air sign. It has to do with communication. And again, blue communication. So it's very good with the association with sensitive people. I'd say it's probably because it's very helpful for filtering out, say, other people's thoughts and feelings and whatever like if you're an empath and you're not quite great at your shielding yet and you're constantly picking up other people's vibes, Aquamarine might help because it does help with shielding the aura. Probably help with also clearing all that out so you can actually freaking focus on your own thing, on your own shit, instead of what everybody else is doing around you. Yeah. It helps to clarify and understand emotions, sharpen intuition and clairvoyance. Again, throat and third eye. Mostly third eye with intuition and clairvoyance, but yeah. It's mostly just very calm, clearing, grounding, focus, sharpening stone. I mean, hell, even me holding it, I can kind of feel some of that calm energy. Like, after I first picked it up, I was like, whew. So, if I'm noticing effects, like, results, like, almost right away, it's pretty strong. That's what I say, because I'm not the most sensitive person. I'm very good at blocking out the sensitivity, I'll put it that way. So noticing it like right away as I'm just holding it, it's probably going to blow some slightly more sensitive people away, which might be why my sister, who's a very strong, sensitive empath, really likes Aquamarine. But yeah. It's also, because it's so very good at clarifying perception and whatnot, it's also a very good closure stone. So for closure of all kinds, like, you know, okay, it's time to, like, end this thing, leave this thing behind. So again, we have some of that Aquarian energy of not only the, well, we've already had the Aquarian energy, but also the Aquarian energy of the fixed modality of, you know, let's do this, let's finish it up. That energy coming through this. So that's why this is associated very strongly with Aquarius. It's like, it was, besides amethyst, it was the second most often stone that popped up when I was going through crystals for Aquarius. Which I think that's the only zodiac sign I found that the majority of them repeat, as opposed to, like, we got these 5, and these 5, and these 5, and these 5, and we have these 5 that has one from this one, and yeah. A lot of other zodiac signs so far have been a lot harder to find stones for. This one was like, Aquarius was like the easiest. Amethyst and Aquamarine were like the most common. Almost went with Hematite, because that was like basically the third most repeating, but Aquamarine just kind of felt a little bit better. Alright, so that's the crystal. Alright, on to the herb / plant. This one is not associated with Aquarius, but it was the one that was basically screaming in my face, pick me, pick me, pick me, and I was like, fine. I almost thought it was going to be fennel, which is, for some reason, is apparently associated with Aquarius, but I opened up Scott Cunningham's book to look for fennel, found Fenugreek, and that wouldn't get out of my head, and so we're going with Fenugreek, which is one of its folk names, I guess, is a Greek hay or Greek hayseed, which Fenugreek, kind of, I'm assuming that's basically what it means. It comes from Latin. Well, it comes from Latin for Greek hay. So, and Fenugreek is actually used to be used a lot as basically a plant to mix with other things for feeding cattle, and it comes up in a lot of ancient sources as being part of a diet for cattle. Fenugreek is used, it's a day energy, it's the sun energy, it's actually ruled by Apollo. Apollo is the deity associated with it. So it's that day, bright solar energy, it's very warm, it's a warm herb, which makes sense because of where it's found, kind of more in the Middle Eastern area. It's actually a staple in a lot of, well, I have a few countries on here. It's a staple spice in Indian, Turkish, Iranian, Georgian, and Egyptian cuisine, and a few others. I just couldn't write them all down. In fact, that was probably more than I needed to write down, but yeah. Yeah, it's a staple spice in a lot of their food, so that gives you kind of an idea of what kind of vibe it has. Just, it's a very warm, the fenugreek is actually yellow, the seeds. The seeds are the main part of the plant that's used. There are a few countries that use the entire plant. Magic-wise, it's used primarily for prosperity, or basically money house, or house money magic, so basically bringing money into your home. So it's basically primarily a money herb. Not just prosperity in general, but specifically money. You could use it just in general for prosperity. It's also used, this one I didn't find quite as often as its associations, or as magical properties, but it is apparently also used as protection and a grounding herb. Most specifically, it looks like for spiritual journeying, like shamanic journeying, or astral projection and whatnot. So, as a way to ground yourself as a way to keep yourself grounded in your body and protect you while you're journeying, or protect your body while you're journeying, something like that. Like I said, I couldn't find a whole lot of information on that. In fact, magical property-wise, there really wasn't much beyond its medicinal properties, and this is where I'm going to strongly emphasize, talk to your doctor. Because while I could find a lot of folk medicine, herbal remedies from slightly more metaphysical shop, not so much like actual herb, homeopathic, or medically, scientifically sound stuff. It was more in the metaphysical area I could find all these folk remedies, which was, it's great for, in a nutshell, a lot of different inflammation and gastric problems. I think the biggest one I found, however, was that it was very strong. Its oldest folk remedy is as a lactation increaser, basically for breast milk, as a way to increase breast milk production during nursing. However, and luckily all these places had this warning of do not use while pregnant, because it actually has abortification, I believe the word is, properties. Basically, it can cause miscarriages. It is actually it contains steroidal saponins, which most specifically diosgenin, which is used in the manufacture of birth control pills. So it will probably cause miscarriages if you use it while pregnant. In fact, according to Wikipedia, granted, but from what I could find science-wise, this was fairly true. There's no good evidence that it actually helps increase breast milk production. According to one site I found, there was apparently a study. They didn't link the study, so I don't know how true it is, that it might help with specific types of cancers, like to kind of slow them down. But again, most of what I was finding was more folk, I don't want to say folk, but more word of mouth. Oh, it definitely has this ability in medicinal stuff, as opposed to, like, this is scientifically proven. In fact, I couldn't find much that was scientifically proven. Like, the most I could find was that it's great for birth control pills type deal, which doesn't make me think that it'd be that great for even nursing mothers, much less, sure as hell not pregnant people. But nursing people probably wouldn't be that great of an idea either. So yeah, like I said, medicinal property-wise, most of what I could find was just, yeah, basically just oh, my granny said such and such type deal. So, and everything I could find that was kind of being contradicted by actual medical science stuff that I could find, which unfortunately wasn't much. I was also running out of time, so. Fenugreek, that's something I'd say there are other things out there that have actual, like, research on them and more proven properties that would probably be a better replacement for whatever Fenugreek is supposed to do. But if you're absolutely desperate and want to try it, talk to your fucking doctor first, please. Like, have them do the actual right research in the actual scientific journals, because they know what they're looking for, and listen to what they tell you. This is something I'd advocate if you're going to use it in magical practice. I'd strongly advocate using it as, like, something you burn, something you use in a sachet, or a poppet, or what have you, something where it's not, you're not actually consuming it, because apparently it also, the other things I could find medical wise is it will mess with diabetic medicines, with your insulin, and it will mess with any blood coagulation medications you take. So I believe that was that basically the cause of blood thinning is what I'm taking from that. But for sure, it will mess with medications. So Fenugreek, I'd advise doing your research and maybe using it more as a external magical ingredient, or cook with it. I'm sure you can find a lot of Middle Eastern foods that probably taste absolutely delicious. And since it'll be combined with a shit ton of other things, it won't be nearly as harmful with its properties because it'll be toned down by everything else. So that's something I wouldn't advise actual internal use, especially not by itself. Yeah. So that's Fenugreek. So very interesting one. I always find the fun ones. In fact, my very first episode of this, I did an entirely poisonous plant. So fun. That was Bloodroot, by the way, if you want to go back and look at that. Alright, and last but certainly not least, we have, excuse me, our rune, our Elder Futhark rune for today, which is Uruz. Kind of see here, it looks like an upside down U that's very angular with one side longer than the other. Uruz, so Uruz is the Germanic name. In Anglo-Saxon and Old Norse, it's Ur, or it's U-R, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. I think it's Ur. Just given the longer form is Uruz. Uruz. So, Ur. Maybe I'm going to just stick with Uruz because I know how to pronounce that. Its traditional / literal meaning is the aurochs, which are an extinct species of wild oxen that were native to a lot of the Germanic, Scandinavian, northwestern, eastern Europe, somewhere in Europe, northern Europe, plus all that. I'm not good on I don't know the specifics for sure. But they were a large type of wild ox that were also known to be very violent. They had huge horns, which were coveted as drinking vessels. And there was, according to Freya Osman's Leaves of Yggdrasil book, it was and probably somewhere else, I'm sure she actually got actual information. It was used as, that's what it was. It was a manhood warrior trial type deal to send the young men of the village who wanted to prove their worth as being strong and warrior-like and basically good breeding mates to go out and hunt a wild auroch with as little weaponry as possible, like mostly just their bare hands and feet and maybe a couple small tools, like, I don't know, probably a spear or a dagger or something, to try to hunt a wild auroch and bring back its horns as proof that they had hunted and killed one of these ferocious beasts, to prove their strength, their fighting ability, their fighting prowess, etc., etc., and they'd be accepted as welcome back to the tribe as warriors, as great warriors type deal. Sadly, the aurochs are now extinct, which kind of sucks because that'd be kind of cool to see, but, you know, stupid people probably hunt them. Uruz contains the energy of... So in the Elder Futhark, the first 2 runes of the first 8 are... Futhark, come on. Fehu and Uruz. Fehu aligns with the primordial fire energy. So in the Old Norse myth of creation, at the very beginning of everything, there were 3 things that existed. There were the fires of Niflheim. No, not Niflheim. It started with an M. But there were basically the fires, the ice, that were those 2 were constantly kind of battling, and where they mixed, new life would spring up. The first thing to spring up was the cow, I forget her name, who basically through her actions, because where the fire and the ice mixed, creation happened. And so the first to come of that was the cow, who licked the ice until the salt from her tongue, or the salt from something or other, created created and or released a frost giant, or one of the first original frost giants or giants, who nursed from her, and yada yada yada. But the primordial two were the fire and ice, which caused creation. So that fire was the energy that kind of pushed, the ice was the more primal, steady earth energy that contained. And when they met and mixed, the fire pushed the ice to create something, and the ice kind of cooled down the fire so it didn't cause destruction. So the energy is the energy of the ice a little bit, but more specifically of that primal earth, that that first creation. It's that raw, indestructible, strong power. It's Aurochs, again, Wild Ox being very much a strong, earthy, and like I said, ferocious beast who, large, kind of hard to kill. I mean, hell, they were used in manhood trials, and more likely than not, you're going to get yourself gouged instead of actually come back with their horns. It's associated with strength and persistence, durability, patience, endurance, courage, and the correct application of aggression at the right time. This was actually a part that was emphasized. It's like, aggression is, we tend to think of it as kind of a bad thing, mostly because we've seen the most unhealthy side of it more often than not, where it's like, God, I'm pissed off, I'm gonna go do something. I'm gonna, like, cause harm to other people because I'm so pissed off and I just want to move something. This is not this is the healthy expression of aggression, where it's like, okay, I need to actually make my move now so I can do what I need to do, and it's not gonna harm people. It's I don't know, example of fudge, I don't know. Oh, well, to go back to our example of hunting aurochs, it's like this aggression of, okay, I'm patient, I'm waiting, I've got to wait until this auroch, like, having to sit in that hunter's mode behind the blind, like, trying to not be seen. You have to sit and be patient for just the right moment for when that auroch is not looking at you, and then you take all that aggression you've been kind of, like, patiently holding on to, you spring forward and you make your move in order to kill this auroch as fast as possible, as fast and as cleanly as possible, so that you basically come out on top and you're not going to end up, like, gored. It's the careful application of aggression to cause the least harm possible and to move forward. So that's the energy of Uruz. Now, and actually another interesting factoid I found in this was, in German and Dutch, and I'm kind of taking Freya's word for this because she is Dutch. The word means primal or ancient. So again, we have that primal ancient thing, and is actually a word contained in one of the Old Norse Nords, basically one of the three fates. So one of the Nords, Urd, who is the Nord of the past. And there's more to her, I just don't know it right off the top of my head. But yeah, I know she is very strongly associated with the past. So Urd, ancient, primal, past. You see where I'm going. However, in divination, and this is what threw me for a loop, in divination, more specifically, like, the only keyword she has associated with it is health. That's literally it. And it's like, okay, so it does make sense, as if we're talking about a very raw, ancient, earthy energy. Well, what do we associate with earth in ourselves? Our body. So it makes sense to a degree. It kind of threw me for a loop at first, but it makes sense. It's associated with earth, associated with primal. It's like the most primal earthy thing we have is our body. So if it comes up in divination, it's something to do to look at your health. And the other parts of divination that also came with it is upright. It has to do with the strength, coming from a position of strength, being able to do stuff. For thinking health, it's like you're in great health. You've got the drive, power, and ability to go do this. However, if it comes up inverted, you know, come to think of it, I said it looked like a U with a slightly longer side. I meant an upside. Did I say an upside down U? It looks like an upside down U. That one side's slightly longer and higher than the other. I apologize if I said it just looked like a U. Which reminds me, it actually is very similar to the constellation of Aquarius. The description of that now that I think about it, which is kind of cool. So, inverted, it looks like an actual U with the top open. And it usually means a weakness, not coming from a position of strength, but from a position of weakness. Like, okay, hold your horses. You need to step back and take a minute to reassess your surroundings and whatnot. Like, are you really able to actually do this? What can you do to give yourself that high ground? And if it was coming up health-wise, I'd say more than likely probably a sickness. And it's like maybe you should go to check out a doctor. Something here is not quite right. Either reevaluate yourself, maybe go to a doctor, even get an exam. It's like something health-wise is not quite great. Magic-wise, Freya Osman actually strongly emphasized that Uruz should be involved in any magic, in any rune magic concerned with healing. Which makes sense. Again, we have the body, the primal energy, the raw force that in its best expression. Your best expression, therefore your best health. So be very good in any type of runic magic involving healing. The way I like to use it, because I like to draw the Uruz runes on my arms if I think that I really need some strength of body to really get through the day, to keep going. I've done this before on days at work where I'm like, I'm just feeling so worn out and tired, and I'm like, I've got a full day of work ahead of me. I need to be able to keep going, so I'll draw Uruz on my arms, because that gives me the strength to push through the day, to keep going, to just be able to pace myself. That's the other thing, is I found it to be a very pace-making. It's not a, let's slam through this. It's very steady and stable. And it's a very good stamina booster, even. So I found it good for that. And one of the magical applications Freya Osman recommends is, if you need that boost of strength, pouring yourself a glass of water, and then on the outside of the glass, tracing the Uruz rune, like, just with your finger, like, not actually having to draw it on there or anything, just tracing it with your finger, envisioning it in, like, lighting up in red, and then sending that energy into the energy of the rune, the red rune, into the glass of water, and just filling it, just basically charging the water with the power of the rune. She says it should have a slightly metallic taste to it. I haven't tried it, so maybe. I don't know. I'll have to try it at some point. But like I said, I like actually drawing it on my arms better, because I feel like it lasts longer. It's a bit of a mental thing with me. If I can actually see it and remind myself, and it helps it reactivate the energy. But that's me, just because I'm very much a visual kinesthetic. So I have to actually have it there as a thing, not, I drank a glass of water 3 hours ago. Well, I'm going to fall asleep now. Yeah, so that's Uruz, Aquarius, Aquamarine, and Fenugreek. So, yeah, that's everything I have for today. I know I'm not doing a face spell. I figured this is probably long enough. I got plenty on here. I'll go back to the spells at a later date. Maybe once we get through all the zodiac signs, which won't be till August. But we'll see. Alright, so that is all I have for you today. Next week, we'll be exploring the Lovers card. So, yay, fun. Cool, yeah. Hope this was informative. Hope you all learned something, at least semi-new, or got reminded of something you knew once before. Gave you a different view on whatever. That's kind of always my hope with any of these, is just kind of to add to knowledge. Add to either existing knowledge or start some new knowledge. Preferably existing knowledge, but meh. I don't control what people watch or know, or as much as I'd like to, but that's a little too much responsibility, so I can't. I don't. Hopefully the birds weren't too... they actually probably weren't all that irritating today. So yeah, like, comment, and subscribe here on YouTube if that's where you found this. If you got this through my Facebook page, cool. Like and follow my Facebook page if you haven't. There are links down below. If you got questions or you want to hit me up for a tarot read, you can email me at bagsandomens@gmail.com, which I'll also have below in the description. And if you think this is pretty cool information and you either really like me or you got some extra cash just kind of lying around, throw some my way. You can find me at patreon.com/bagsandomens, which I really don't have anything up there post-wise just because I don't have any patrons right now, so I've been putting it off as when I get patrons, I'll start putting stuff up. We'll see if I actually follow through with that. I'm hoping to. I should probably just start putting stuff up as is now anyway. But yeah, if you feel like throwing money, if you got extra money you want to throw at me, I'll take it. If not, please like and comment. That almost is worth more to me, because I'm just like, you know what, I like to know that people are actually finding this, enjoying it, finding it helpful, or at least, I don't know, something not unhelpful or dumb. If you think there is something that's dumb, hell, I'll take a comment on that too, whatever. My sister kind of yelled at me last week because she's like, the mummification thing, one of her deities is Anubis. So when I was just like, their judgment ritual, which is the weighing of the heart, by the way, I just could not for the life of me remember it. It was one of those tip of the tongue things, but it wasn't there. She was like, oh my god, it's the weighing of the heart. And I'm like, I'm sorry, and I'm sure Anubis is smacking his head against the wall. And she's like, yeah, he is. I'm like, my bad. Might end up with comments. It'd be hilarious. So, shit like that, you're like, oh my god, you dumbass. I will take comments. So long as they're not, like, overly mean. I mean, I am a little bit sensitive, and I do tend to cry if people yell at me, so please don't be too mean. Just be like, oh, god. Let me just, like, set you straight on something or other. Helps me grow my knowledge, which is the other, like, 80% of why I do this, because it forces me to learn. Yay. Yeah. Alright, that's it. Hope y'all had fun. If you stuck out through all this. I don't think most people do, but whatever. So, we'll see y'all next week. Have a great rest of your whatever it is, whenever you're watching this. Yeah, okay, bye. Birds say bye.